As sad as it may be, it looks like we are heading towards the demise of Max Holloway. Everyone is favoring Ilia Topuria to win the fight. The odds makers have it that way. I know a couple people who have picked Holloway on YouTube, but the odds just speak large, like minus 300 favorite for Ilia Topuria to defeat Max Holloway. And if this outcome does happen, you could just see Joe Rogan won't be commentating. If he was, it'd be right after. But you can just see Joe Rogan on his podcast talking about how Ilia Topuria is the greatest featherweight of all time. Just like he did with Max Holloway and just like he did with Volk. In an attempt to let that not happen, let's come up with the perfect game plan in Connell's Combat's mind to beat Ilia Topuria for Max Holloway. First, let's answer the question, what does Holloway need to do? We all know Topuria's A game. I had talked about it in my last video that I made a few days ago. Topuria wants to pressure forward, he wants to cut off the cage, and he wants to let go his big boxing combinations to the body and to the head. What Holloway needs to do is he needs to stop this pressure. He needs to stop that game of Topuria from happening. This is Topuria's main attack, so Holloway needs to get him out of that. He needs to make him uncomfortable and not give Topuria the fight that Topuria wants. Another thing, I'm reading off my article here. It's linked below. You could go check it out if you'd rather read, but I'm gonna yap here. Keep the fight in the center of the cage. Out in the open, Holloway has a way better chance than being backed up against the fence. This is just simple. When you're out in the open, you have more room to exit out backwards and avoid the punches. Topuria is a shorter guy. He has to close that range, make it tight. I talked about this last time. You guys know. Topuria's less dangerous in the open. He's more dangerous when he has his opponent's back against the fence. So Holloway, he needs to do these two things. He needs to halt the forward pressure, and he needs to keep the fight in the center of the cage. They kind of work together, but you get what I mean. So let's talk about this perfect game plan that I have created for Max Holloway that will absolutely just shatter Ilia Topuria. No matter what Topuria does, if Max Holloway employs this game plan to perfection, it's over. We got Holloway champ again. Starting with the Southpaw stance. Max Holloway is a solid switch hitter. In the last 5 years or so of his career, he's been mostly orthodox. He'll switch on occasion, like in the Volkanovski fight, he got his leg chopped in the first Volkanovski fight, so he went Southpaw and didn't really find much success. But early in his career, he would fight fights completely Southpaw, like against Ricardo Lamas and against Cub Swanson. He was pretty much exclusively Southpaw. And we'll talk about the Cub Swanson fight later on. But the reason for him to go Southpaw in this fight is because of this lead hand fight that you see Mitchell starting to enact right here. Topuria loves to build his pressure off of his jab. He's got a really sharp jab, a stinging jab to both the head and the body, and he throws it to the body really well to help cut off the cage. And he'll feint the jab, he'll show the jab, and then he'll throw it, and this helps him corral his opponents up to where he wants them. But when you get this open stance matchup that we have right here between Bryce and Ilia, and hopefully Max and Ilia, that hand fight that Bryce is looking to play disrupts the path of that jab. It makes jabbing feel a little bit awkward. This happened to Ilia Topuria in this fight with Bryce Mitchell. And if Bryce Mitchell can disrupt you with hand fighting tactics, I feel like Max Holloway could also do that. So when Topuria was having trouble leading with his jab, as he normally does, he started to resort to lead with his right hand. And this can be effective out of this stance if you get the distance right. The path is just clean, it's a cleaner path to the opponent, throwing your rear hand against a southpaw if you're an orthodox fighter. But it can also leave you open to this counter, the open side counter. You see Topuria just an absolute sucker for this. If Bryce Mitchell was Sean O'Malley at UFC 292 here, you could see what would be coming. He hit Sean O'Malley, I'm talking about. He hit Almeida with this. He hit Aljamain Sterling with this. Obviously, the stances were flipped. But Topuria, I'll play this too. Like, that's in full speed. Topuria throws a shot, and he's like hopping in. It takes Bryce a full second to throw that counter shot. And of course, it's because he's not even in the air. So he can't really throw a shot in the air. So he has to plant and then throw. But you get a sharper counter puncher like Max Holloway, someone a little bit more skilled on the feet than Bryce Mitchell. I think this counter could happen right here. Like, pull back, left hand, if he gets the read on it. But if Topuria is overextending like this, it's a little bit dangerous for him. Even Bryce Hall, I called him. Whoa. Even Bryce Mitchell kind of tagged him here with this counter left hand. So if Holloway can go southpaw, disrupt that jab, that disrupts a lot of the game for Topuria. Okay, so we have Max in the southpaw stance. What's another thing that opens up? It's that open side body kick. That open side body kick, especially for a southpaw into an orthodox fighter, is really effective. The liver's back there, and just the open side kicking game in general, both to the head and to the body, playing that game of, oh, is it going to the body, is it going to the head? You only have your right arm to defend it, so you got to choose. Look at this fight. This was the fight before Topuria got into the UFC. This is the fight that got him the contract. And look what happens. Tall dude out of southpaw, boom, lands a head kick which wobbles Topuria backwards and then ends up dropping him with a right hook. So, and it wasn't a particularly well set up head kick. I think Topuria saw the kick coming, but he might have thought it going to the body. As you see, he brings his hips back here and he's bringing this arm down to kind of block it, but it just sneaks up to the head. And we have seen this left kick to that open side hurt Topuria before, famously in the Herbert fight. Yusuf Zalal, which was Ilia Topuria's debuting opponent, landed some really nice left kicks to both the body and to the head. So this is something of a weakness from Topuria. So he lands it, this gentleman, I don't know his name, and then he rushes forward with a right hook and drops Topuria. Topuria eventually scrambles, gets the takedown. But if Max Holloway can start throwing this left body kick, throwing it to the body and to the head, then that's going to be something that can prove effective. And another reason why the left body kick is something that is effective. Sorry, I'm stumbling. Let me show you quickly. Max Holloway has a southpaw body kick. Here he lands a nice southpaw body shot against Cub Swanson and then boom, blasts the body kick, which hurts Swanson badly. I think the body shot before this hurt him as well. But Holloway has the ability to land southpaw body kicks. He kicks phenomenally well, and he can land them, is basically what this clip shows. Swanson scrambles there. But another job that southpaw, that left kick does, is it forces, I know this is a bad example because Cub's in already such a defensive position, but when you're defending the southpaw body kick, I feel like a few of you know where I'm going with this, you have to be defending it with the arm. So, like, if I'm in orthodox, I'm Ilia, and that body kick's coming, I have to have this arm at home to be defending it, whether it's to the head or to the body. And even if I am blocking it, okay, it's good, I'm blocking it, I'm finding it, he's not tricking me, he's still keeping that right hand at home. Like, you can't be throwing the shot and then it slides under and it goes to the body, and even when he feints it, then your right hand is in a defensive state. So if Holloway can use that left side body kick, that open side body kick, to keep Topuria's weapons at home, then that's going to be obviously very beneficial for him. Let's add to the Southpaw kicking game. Why don't we insert some teeps? Look at this teep from Bryce Mitchell. It was thrown so close. The range on it is funny. I think he started to throw it and Topuria closed the distance a little bit, but it like kind of lands on the chin. Bryce Mitchell, aka Bryce Hall, is the greatest striker of all time. He like lands it on the chin but pulls it. It's so weird. Like just sticks his toes in Topuria's mouth. But teeps to the body, out with both legs are going to be effective. Not only damaging wise, but as a range manager. If Topuria is trying to pressure in, you teep him. Even if it doesn't land super clean. It's just keeping that range and stopping that forward pressure of Topuria, that constant, like, slow, steady pressure where he just backs you up to the cage. Teep him, get him to back up, parry it, land it clean, start to hurt his body, start to slow him down. Teeps are another addition to the kicking game out of Southpaw that I would like for Max Holloway. Another addition to the kicking game, I think you guys know where I'm going with this clip pulled up. The lead leg stomp. Now hear me out. I know this is a controversial technique. Oh, that pause is crazy. But specifically with this matchup, this strike is like, it's intriguing to me. If Holloway is in the Southpaw stance, we know Ilia has quite a bladed stance. Not as bladed as Bukowskis makes his stance when he throws this left hook. Like, that's Wonder Boy kind of blade right there. It's not that bladed, but if Holloway can start to land some lead leg stomps, that will be a great way to dissuade pressure and even potentially damage Topuria to the point where he like can't pressure. And he doesn't want to close that range because his lead leg just gets stomped on. Holloway has used this weapon before, but usually it's just kind of like a range finder, like he's just touching, which does get his opponent to back up. And sometimes he like feints it and then sets up other strikes. I'm remembering the Cater fight, he did that quite a bit. But obviously in its most devastating form, this could be like a fight ender. But we haven't seen Holloway throw it in this way. But even if he doesn't throw it as damaging as Khalil Roundtree does here, like on the counter as Bukowskis is throwing, and it's just a pure stomp right through the leg, it can serve as a way to keep the fight in the center of the octagon and dissuade the pressure from Topuria. And elaborating on the kicking game, this is some ways that I feel that Max Holloway can get his boxing game started. Once he's established this left kick out of Southpaw, he can begin to feint it. Look how clean this feint is. Like, watch that. And he just pulls it. That's a completely convincing feint. And if Topuria is going to be reacting to it and pulling his hips back, and he can start to see these reactions, and if Holloway is getting the feint done like right and Topuria is pulling back, then this is where he can start to switch into orthodox, his preferred stance, and lead with some boxing combinations. In this clip, you see how I conveniently pulled it back. He feints beautifully. 1, 2, but then he goes to lead in with this other 2, and his chin is on a platter for this counter left hook. Watch it in slow-mo. Boom. And it was a short, like it wasn't a super swinging hook from Swanson. He started it here and just planted his feet and tagged him. But ignore that for a second. Look at the hip feint and then the 1, 2. Let's say Holloway plants his feet right here where he is. I know he's really extended and he's pushing back on that foot, but say he feints the kick, 1, 2, and then he's pulling on this left hook instead of trying to throw another 1, 2 into it. He can't get greedy here because Topuria, although he does do his best work on the offensive, he could still land a big bomb of a counter. So, feint the kick, get him backing up, and what is this doing? This is serving the ultimate goal of halting the pressure and keeping the fight in the center of the octagon. Let's say Holloway is behind the black lines. He feints the southpaw kick, falls into orthodox, 1, 2, stops, and then they're back in the center. Even if none of the strikes land, then that's an effective attack because he's pushing the fight back to where he wants it. And of course he can start landing it. That was such a nice counter hook by Cub Swanson. And 23-year-old Max Holloway, 23 years old, crazy. His chin was in prime condition. He's not going to get hurt by anything. And for this darting combination thing to work, Topuria has to be backing up in straight lines, and he showed this a lot in his fight against Josh Emmett. And of course, Josh Emmett, very scary power puncher, but you see Emmett go jab, jab, overhand, and Topuria's backing up in a straight line. So if he can get those same reactions, Holloway can get those same reactions from Topuria, then that can help him control, like that can help him in cagecraft and ultimately to avoid getting backed up against the fence. Jumping back into the kicking game, let's talk about the spinning back kick. This is a high risk, high reward technique in certain scenarios. One scenario that I could see the spinning back kick working, firstly, let's establish that Holloway really only throws this out of orthodox, and I want him southpaw for the large majority of the fight. But you see him here southpaw, he can fade back and throw it. But this is a little risky. So see he fades back, he actually switches and then jumps into it against Gaethje, and Gaethje just ducks right into it, breaking his nose. We all know this shot. But of course, against the fence, spinning, landing, he lands actually, even landing the strike, he comes back in southpaw. But let's say he misses the spinning back kick and he's against the fence, not in his stance really, he's landed in a neutral position. That's not good. That's dangerous. He's turning his back to one of the most scary dudes in the 145-pound division. Where I could see him using it though is in these darting combinations that we were talking about. So say he goes feint, gets him backing up, jabs here, steps through with this left leg, and throws the spinning back kick. It's kind of like when it's like a step through spinning back kick. It just, so much power is generated with it. So if he can do that and land it, obviously that's amazing. Could hurt to the body if Topuria ducks, as he often does. It could even end up hitting him in the face, which is, as we see here, very, very devastating. A heel right across the bridge of the nose is not going to suit you well. I don't care how tough you are. But, again, even if it doesn't land super clean, say it lands on the guard, it's serving the purpose of pushing Topuria back and keeping the fight in the center of the octagon. You don't usually just tank a spinning back kick to the body and not take a couple steps back. Like, if you're getting spinning back kick to the body, anywhere it lands, you're probably going to take a step or two back. So that can work to halt the pressure. And of course, best case scenario, do this to Topuria where he's ducking down and it breaks his nose. But that could be a little bit of wishful thinking. But that's another kick that we got to employ in this perfect Max Holloway game plan. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, this is another high risk, high reward. I like the back kick a little bit more than this. This one for me is really risky, pretty scary, is these intercepting knees to the body. And, oh, I've disappeared. I might just not be on webcam for the rest. I don't know what happened. Okay, I don't know if my camera died. It might have. We're out of the shot now. We're rolling with the punches. This intercepting southpaw knee to the body, it's really pretty, especially when it lands clean. Like, look at that. It takes Swanson off of his feet. He jumps into the air as this shot lands, and it's devastating. But it also leaves you on one leg in punching range with Ilia Topuria. And for me, that's not a very promising proposition. High risk, high reward. If Max Holloway can time this and not get hit with a left hook over here or a right hook over here, then it could be a successful weapon. Quickly, I guess I'll get to concluding it because my camera died. Been yapping on for too long. My camera's even like, all right, you gotta chill. This is my idea of a game plan for Max Holloway. Am I saying that if Max Holloway follows this hypothetical game plan to a T, then he will absolutely dominate Ilia Topuria? No. Fighting isn't that simple. But just with a couple, these are just a couple of my ideas that I thought could work in the style matchup. I don't have faith that Holloway will even go Southpaw because he's been so orthodox heavy, but we can dream, can't we? If you want to go read the article, I'd really appreciate it. It's pretty similar to the video, but if you made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching, and peace.